Commission for Government-Owned and Controlled Corporations now called to order. Let me direct the committee secretary to acknowledge our resource persons for today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. For the budget briefing of the Governance Commission for Government-Owned and Controlled Corporations, or the GCG, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our resource persons who are here with us. First is the chairperson, Justice Alex L. Quiros, the Commissioner Attorney Gideon B.V. Mortel, Commissioner Attorney Geraldine Marie B. Berberabe Martinez, Attorney Johan Carlos S. Bersena, Director 4 of the Corporate Governance Office B, Attorney Michael D. Pabalinas, Director 4 of the Office of the General Counsel, Attorney Karen Criz L. Tanco Pascasio, Director 3 of the Corporate Standards Office, Ms. Jacqueline D. Ponseca, Director 3 of the Corporate Governance Office A, Attorney Joseph Harvey Vehemente, Attorney 4 of the Disposition and Asset Management Office, Mr. Raul T. Abad, Chief Accountant Officer, and Ms. Ina Marie Felici Protasio Ladislao, Chief Administrative Officer. We are also joined online by other officials of the GCG, Attorney Lovely Joy Avisado, Director 4 of the Corporate Governance Office A, Attorney Remus Romano A. Reyes, Head Executive Assistant of the Office of the Chairperson, and Ms. Bea Nadine V. Barte. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Comsec. Once again, good morning, everyone. This is actually my fourth time to hear the GCG budget. So I'm quite familiar with the mandates and the law that created GCG, and I'm quite familiar with the operations of GCG because of my experience over the last 3 years. So we'll do away with all the preliminaries. We'll go straight into the budget so that we can have more time to talk about the budget. I know the budget is not so big, no, considering the overall budget of national government. But in my principle is always there's a new chance of improving the agency under a new management. No? So since Justice Cross is now the new head or the new leader of the GCG, and I understand there are also new commissioners and a few new people who will be running GCG. I'm quite positive, no, that there'll be a lot of improvements under the new leadership in GCG. No? So we'll be very happy to listen to the new strategy. And of course, in any endeavor, there's always room for improvement. And over the last 3 years, we've been really pushing, guiding the GCG to achieve more. But I know that this new leadership can also up the ante, so to speak, in terms of performance. Before we go into the budget proper, I think it's just proper to introduce the new leadership of the GCG so that we can be acquainted with the new leadership, and then let's go into the budget proper so we can discuss it more thoroughly. All right, so we'll turn over the microphone to the chairperson, to the chairman of the GCG, and we can start with some introduction and then go into the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And good morning. And as you have said, that the new administration, this representation, including my or our two commissioners, we have some directional plan, such as we have to first is to revisit the fit and proper rule, which is already been adopted by the office in selecting nomination for director, a member of the board of directors. We are contemplating whether we could include in a fit and proper rule, such as psychological exam by the nominees, drug testing certification, and if possible, we will have some publication of those who wish to be included in the short list of nominees for that GOCC. So should there be some derogatory, some opposition, we will take into consideration as well as to validate the same, to investigate the whatever kind of opposition should there be. Now, with regards to the monitoring, evaluation of the performance, we are intending, well, of course, with the help of the Senate, Congress, and the Office of the President, whether we could install some liaison officer for each and every GOCC. So there will be a direct monitoring of the activities being done by the concerned GOCCs. Now, with regards to the welfare of the employees of the GOCC, we will look into as to the compensation package as well as the evaluation of the situation because GOCC must likewise have to compete the private sector and to balance the situation without, well, of course, some or most of them are already exempted from the salary standardization law. But there is a compensation package to be graduated and apply to each and every GOCC. Foremost, we have also, as it is provided in the law, we notice, or I notice, all right, our office may file criminal, civil, and administrative cases as circumstances or evidence may warrant, right? I try to ask the people who has the institutional knowledge whether was there already a criminal, civil, or administrative matter being filed by our office at present. There is none. Well, there is likewise another situation that the office must look into. The office may move for a special audit if the commission feels that there could have been some dissipation committed by any of the GOCC because our office is mandated to take care the 10 trillion properties of the government and to see to it that the same was properly managed or whether there is a the the board of directors were able to take care of this. As such, Mr. Chairman, I feel there's still very big room for improvement, but it will entail some logistic necessity so as we could attain whatever our purpose. This representation merely assume last August 11. And admittedly, we are still at the adjustment period. With the help of my two commissioners and the directors who are seemingly very efficient, we likewise at present introduce what I call a dialogue. A dialogue to take care and to listen as to all concerned issues of all concerned agency. I think there were about 20, uh, no, uh, we, uh, we have 11 GOCCs where their concern was properly addressed, especially the compensation and other benefits of their because there are a lot of motion for reconsideration, an appeal to upgrade the welfare compensation of their employees. But these 11 GOCC, and I think there are still remaining 20 GOCCs where we are listening to them and giving them the proper answer or the remedies. So the 11 GOCCs at present, I think we have already closed and terminate their concern to us. In short, if I'm by analogy, if this is a case, well, they are already been disposed, some of which have been pending for quite some time, but we try to introduce, okay, a system to take care and to guide them as our new dispensation. We would like to take care of everything as much as we could. But, Mr. Chairman, we know that our proposed budget was even reduced by the DBM for I just do not know how many percentage was reduced from it. Okay, and there are a lot of adjustment, in fact, which is not yet been uh, implemented, but we are, because there are some legal consequence. That's why we have to study the legal aspect, legal consequence, and uh, logistically, we seems to have a little short to operate it the way we like it. Meantime, Mr. Chairman, I would cut short just to give you the brief direction plan of this representation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I understand that there are five members for the commissioner position,
Yes, Your Honor.
three of which have already been appointed.
No, the two are ex officios.
Yes, correct. The two are
Okay.
ex officio from
Secretary of Finance and Secretary of
DBM.
Budget.
Yes, okay. And then I understand that, of course, Justice Quiroz is the new chairman, and then appointed are Mr. Attorney Mortel and Attorney Berberabe Martinez. So we have three new commissioners. All right. So aside from the three commissioners, are there new management appointees in the GCG, or everyone is the same?
The support staff, the directors, they're the old one. They possess the institutional knowledge, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we can go already to the presentation of the budget. And
Mr. Chairman, Your Honor, as we have agreed upon yesterday for this presentation, we designated Director Barcena to take the lead and to discuss our budget. Thank you.
go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Chairman. So, as requested, can we proceed to the slides on the budget of the GCG? Sige. So, good morning, Chairman. So, as our As Chairman Quiroz expressed earlier, the new commission did actually a scanning of the GOCC sector upon their assumption to duty. And one of the medium-term strategies that the commission would like to undertake is a holistic anti-corruption and integrity program for the GOCC sector, and to take a more proactive stance in making sure that public accountability is instilled in the GOCC sector. So the chairman mentioned earlier the pursuit of administrative, civil, or criminal cases even filed against erring officers and employees of GOCCs. But on top of that, we also take a proactive stance to embark on preventive measures in the GOCC sector to make sure that mismanagement is minimized, if not outright eliminated, in the GOCC sector. But in the budget of the GCG for 2023, which was formulated prior to the assumption of the new commission, the budgetary thrust contained therein pertains primarily on what our chairman mentioned on the compensation and position classification of the GOCC sector. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. So for 2023, there is an increase of around 50 million from the 2022 budget of the GCG, and that amount primarily accounts for the review of the compensation and position classification for the GOCC sector, as well as the salary standardization 6 law for the national government. So it will be a joint undertaking between the GCG and the DBM to ensure that the compensation in the government, both in the GOCC sector and the NG sector, are synchronized and aligned to ensure that we are able to attract, retain, and motivate a competent core of government personnel in the national government and in our GOCCs. So in terms of share in our budget for 2023, around 40% of our budget is allocated for personnel services. That's around 97 million of the 245 million. And the other 60% pertains to MOE for our operations. So we'd like to highlight as well, Mr. Senator, that the personnel services for GCG only accounts for around 33% of our total personnel. So currently only 74 out of 231 authorized positions in GCG are filled, and the budget allocated to us by the DBM for 2023 only accounts for the current manpower that we have. But moving forward, the commission would like to fill these vacant positions so that we can more closely monitor the GOCCs under our jurisdiction. We have no capital outlay. No capital outlay was approved for the GCG in 2023, but we did, in fact, as will be shown later on, that we did in fact request for capital outlay from DBM, but it was unfortunately not granted. Next slide, please. In terms of utilization for the 2021 allocation granted to GCG, we have in fact obligated around 90% of the total budget allocated in 2021. And of those amounts obligated, we have also disbursed around 93%. So we are, in fact, Senator, utilizing judiciously the budget granted to us by the national government. And in 2022, next slide, please. In 2022, we are likewise on track to achieve at least a 90% utilization rate again of our budget. Currently, we only have around 36% of our budget remaining for obligation for the rest of the year. And this is considering that towards the end of the year, this is the time when the operations is actually in full steam in terms of setting performance targets for GOCCs and evaluating their performance. Of the amounts obligated, we have already disbursed around 76% of the amounts granted to us are obligated by the GCG. Next slide, please. So this is the slide presentation on the amounts that we initially proposed to the Department of Budget and Management and the amounts approved under the National Expenditure Program. As mentioned by Chairman Quiroz, the DBM disapproved around 50 million pesos that we requested from the Department of Budget and Management. And this amount primarily accounts for a lease of office space for GCG in line with our thrust to actually fill up the remaining 66% of our plantilla And that would actually entail us having to use up more office space to accommodate these new personnel, as well as cybersecurity measures that were supposed to be implemented in our integrated corporate reporting system. Because as everyone has learned during the pandemic, the importance of having publicly accessible information in cyberspace is one of the new thrusts of the national government to actually pursue e-governance. And we actually wanted to have more cybersecurity measures implemented within our system so as to ensure the integrity of the information of GOCCs being submitted. So all in all, Mr. Chairman, the total budget of the GCG and under the National Expenditure Program is 254 million as opposed to the proposed budget of 305 million. And this does not include, Mr. Chairman, the new directives under the new commission to pursue that holistic anti-corruption and integrity program. And hopefully would like to be able to submit for the consideration of the Honorable Senator the specifics of this program and potentially the costs that may be incurred by the new commission in the pursuit of this new medium-term strategy. So in terms of total share of the budget of GCG, it's literally a drop in the bucket. It's 250 million out of the 5.27 trillion pesos national government budget under the NEP, Mr. Chairman. And this is to safeguard the 10 trillion pesos in assets in the GOCC sector. So I would think it's a good investment for the national government in terms of cost and benefit. That's our presentation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Johan. Attorney, I'll start off with the budget details. I have a different figure in terms of utilization, and this was called out of the Koa Audit Report for 2021. Here, the utilization rate, let me just break it down. The obligation rate is 79%, and the disbursed utilization rate is about 75%. So,
For that, Mr. Chairman, there's the appropriations for 2021 has been approved as a continuing appropriation. So the figures that we have presented now is the updated figure. So it's also actually utilization for 2020, which we continue to utilize even in the current year.
okay. But this is the one you presented is also 2021, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
This one they presented is also 2021.
That's as of the COA presentation is as of December 31, 2021. The current presentation, considering the 2021 appropriations is a continuing appropriation, is appropriations as of today, Mr. Chair.
No, but the one you presented, this is 2021, or that also includes 2022?
That's 2021, Mr. Chair.
Just
Separate
20
for 2021 and 2022.
Correct. So let's just compare apples to apples, no, so we won't get confused. Because here they also included the continuing appropriations. Have you seen this report? I'm sure you've seen this report, no?
For
Koa
the COA,
report.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
it's the COA annual audit report, Chair, is December
This is the
31.
GCG COA audit report of 2021.
Maybe
Um,
that's continuing appropriations also for 2020, Mr. Chair.
for 2020.
Yes, because 2020 appropriations is also continuing until 2021. So the continuing appropriations reported in the COA audit report for 2021 would have included continuing appropriations of 2020.
Yes, correct. Correct. But that's allowable naman. That means you can spend those money.
Yes,
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
So including the continuing appropriations from 2020, the obligation rate is only 79%.
Yes.
Um,
But for the presentation currently, this is the 2021 appropriations.
just
which
the
includes-
2021
Yes,
appropriations.
as a
Okay.
source of fund.
Okay. Okay. You just compare it. So what you presented earlier is just the appropriation, correct?
Yes, appropriation for 2021.
Okay. Iba pa rin eh. It's different. Anyways, can you just reconcile it, because my question will revolve around the utilization rate.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We'll submit the
Um,
reconciliation.
It seems to me that the utilization rate is not so efficient. No, when I say efficient, that should be above 90%. But in my notes, and this is based on the Koa report, for obligation, meaning appropriation to obligations, only 79%. Then for disbursement, meaning appropriation to disbursement, is only 75%. This includes everything na, no, the current as well as the continuing appropriation. So lahat na, meaning everything that you can spend on. That's how they came up with their computation.
Yes, Mr. Chair. To go to that point, essentially, first we have to understand the 2021 and 2020 appropriations. There was around 75% utilization around that time because it was the pandemic. Appropriations for those years were actually budgeted by the GCG pre-pandemic. So the assumption was it was continued operations. But when 2020 came, the pandemic hit, and since most of the government offices operated under skeletal workforce, the utilization rate for 2020 dipped. And even in 2021, unexpectedly, the effects of the pandemic extended. That's why even the budget utilization rate for 2021 would be around 70%.
Okay.
But considering in the current year, we are normalizing the operations, we are continuing to spend the 2021 appropriations. And as of today, 90% of those amounts for 2021 appropriated have been obligated, and we continue to spend our 2022 current year's operations on top of the continuing appropriations of 2021.
Because
But we'll
here
submit the
in the
reconciliation.
Koa report, the capital outlay um, for 2021 was zero. So you didn't spend your capital outlay?
We'll submit also the report on that, Mr. Chair. For that, we actually had failed biddings for the
Okay.
procurement of those IT equipment at the time.
So that meaning the capital outlay was never used during 2021? No, you didn't buy anything for
For
capital?
2021, Mr. Chair, yes.
Oh, that's why zero siya.
But the appropriations is continuing, and the procurement for that is also going to be underway.
Okay. All right. I think that's also the reason why your capital outlay this year is zero. Correct? Kasi there's it's unobligated in 2021. Normally, if DBM sees that you didn't spend your money in 2020, and obviously in 2022, they will not give you the amount that you will request.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Correct. I think that is the reason. No. So I think there's a request to restore. Correct, in the amounts to 305, and that will include capital outlay.
Yes, we'll submit that request to the good senator, Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
and
but
also
there's-
that integrity program that we wish to pursue.
Yeah, but there's I heard you earlier that you're requesting to restore the 50 million that was cut by DBM.
At least part of it, Mr.
At
Chair.
least part
Yes.
of it, and part of it is also a 20 million capital outlay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Correct. That's the point that I want to raise, because in 2021 your capital outlay was never used, sir. So obviously DBM will not allocate capital outlay, no? But if we will restore it, I have to justify that the 2021 capital outlay will be spent sometime, no? Preferably ASAP, so that there's justification to add another 20 million. Because if we in 2021 is I think 2 million, no? I think we were the ones who installed this. I think we were the one who this is for vehicles yata, the 2 million. Tama ba ako?
Yung vehicles, Mr. Chair, yes. That also, procurement also failed. That's why it's still undergoing procurement until now.
Oo. Yeah, but I remember this was a request that we, if I'm not mistaken, we added this, no? Yeah, I remember the former chairman requested to increase the capital outlay. I think this was the one we augmented.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oo. But it was never spent.
It's undergoing procurement,
Undergoing.
Mr. Chair.
Sige, ganito na lang. Just submit to us. First of all, the data here, the COA data that I have includes continuing appropriations. No? So just to compare apples to apples, we'll use this data. And then the amounts that were not spent, especially on capital outlay and MOE, just submit to us silang a timetable on when you can spend it. So that when we lobby to restore some amounts, we have justification that these amounts that were not spent will be spent in the near future. So just submit to us a timetable.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr.
So
Chair, we'll
that,
submit the timetable and
no,
justifications.
and the items that you will be spending on. No? Itong MOE also is all 53% eh. So only half of MOE was spent. So what were the items that were not spent?
So part of it, Mr. Chair, is expenses for monitoring. So part of the validation process of the GCG in monitoring the performance of GOCCs is actually on-site validation and inspection of the accomplishments. So if there are infrastructure projects that were reported to have been completed, normally the GCG would go on-site to visit these projects and see the status of accomplishment. But during the pandemic, 2020 and 2021, the Governance Commission stopped the on-site validation on account of health concerns to the employees as well as the GOCCs operating in the provinces. So a large chunk of that MOE, Mr. Chair, is going to that validation process of the GCG. But we hope to also continue that in the succeeding year, Mr. Chair, considering everything is already normalizing.
Okay. Yeah. Just submit to us those justification. I just want to put on record that, of course, the pandemic, everyone was affected by the pandemic, and a lot of the field validations were hampered. No? Not only for GCG, but other agencies also, especially field. No, I noticed that. 2020 was the peak of the pandemic, no? And everyone was obliged to stay at home. No? So a lot of the field operations or field inspections were done either by Zoom or by virtual means. So if that is the case, just submit to us na lang those continuing appropriations for MOE and capital outlay and a timetable on when those will be spent.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think, well, in my opinion, the pandemic is really a justifiable reason. I've seen a lot of government agencies didn't spend their inspection budget. No, for example, buying of tickets or renting cars or all of that. No, per dime, because most of these inspectors they go out there. So if that is the case, just give us a justification and also a timetable. Yeah.
Yes,
Then
Mr. Chair.
we'll go to the request for restoration of the budget. I think you know what you presented earlier. So,
Can we go back to the second to that? Sorry, wala.
we'll use na lang this one. No? Para lang we won't waste time. This is the one. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So is 50 million your request to um, restore the budget?
Yes, Mr. Chair, for at least these items.
Okay. Can you discuss what are the items that you want to restore and what are the details of those items? Just ano lang, the broad strokes and also the major items lang. For example, for MOE, for capital outlay, what are the items that you want to restore?
So, Mr. Chair, for MOE, the lease of additional office space, as mentioned earlier, we are operating at around 33% capacity of our personnel, and we wish to expand our personnel complement by filling up the vacant positions. And by filling up the vacant positions next year, we would need to rent additional office space for GCG. Currently, we are occupying the third floor of the BDO Towers Paseo, half of it. And we are actually already renting space already in the same building. And to further expand our plantilla personnel will also entail for us to rent additional office space to accommodate additional personnel. For the MOE of enhancement of ICT services, these are essentially subscription expenses, Mr. Chair, to provide cybersecurity services for the GCG integrated corporate reporting system, which is essentially a centralized online portal of financial and non-financial information of GOCCs. We are currently developing this system in coordination with all other GOCCs so that financial information of the GOCCs can be uploaded to this system in real time on a quarterly and annual basis. So this is under continuing development by our ICTG office, and we wish to have cybersecurity subscription to protect the portal, Mr. Chair. For capital outlay, these are procurements of desktops and laptops. So again, this is in line with our thrust to expand our personnel. So additional personnel would entail additional computers for their use in the office space to be occupied, Mr. Chair. And for capital outlay, we also wish to procure two other multi-purpose vehicles for the staff of the GCG, Mr. Chair, considering during the pandemic and even now, the GCG has been exerting efforts to shuttle personnel from certain pickup and drop-off points, and considering the transportation is still necessary for most of our personnel, we should also procure additional two vehicles for the shuttle purposes for our employees, as mentioned by our chairman.
So MOE will contain the additional space.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's rental space.
Okay, rental space. And also, you said cybersecurity programs.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Correct. I also heard earlier that for PS, the amounts allocated right now will only fund 33% of the authorized positions.
Yes, around 74 personnel, Mr. Chair. The increase in the PS cost would account for the increase in the tranche for salary standardization law 5.
So there's no intention to fill up 100% of the authorized positions?
The target, at least, Mr. Chair, for 2023 is at least 60% of our positions will be filled by 2023 so that we can gradually increase our personnel.
So this additional 12 million will fill up to 60%.
No, Mr. Chair, that only accounts for the current personnel complement with the increase in the PS from SSL, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So that will just comply with the SSL.
Yes, so as we fill up our positions, the strategy initially, provided is that as we fill up personnel, we will request additional budget from DBM to cover the PS cost. But with respect to the capital outlay for computers and the space for the personnel, since these are going to be difficult to request on a quarterly basis from DBM, we would need an annual appropriations to cover the cost of this, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, because I saw in the budget for 2023 for PS, it's 97 million.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
This was in fact increased from your proposed.
Yes,
Tama?
Mr. Chair.
But you don't no intention of increasing it further to fill up the authorized position.
If the good chairman can actually increase it to the 60% level that we wish to attain for the year, that would be best for the GCG, Mr. Chair. But we also understand that since if it's straight 60%, that would entail the annual appropriations for GCG. So it's as if we're operating at 60% at January 1. So considering hiring will be on a gradual basis, then the PS would be requested from DBM also on a quarterly basis as we hire, so as not to incur unobligated amounts of PS because we're not be operating at 60% already on January 1.
But when you request from DBM on a quarterly basis, DBM can fund the added manpower.
They have a source of fund for that, Mr. Chair, or in some cases, they allow the GCG to convert certain items to PS to fund it in the meantime.
All right. Sige. All right. Sige. So the official request will be at the amount of 50 million. Is that tama
Yes,
ba?
Mr. Chair.
All right. Sige. Just submit to us again yung breakdown ng 50.
Yes, Mr. Chair, will
But
do.
we captured naman what are the major components of the 50 million. You also mentioned itong capital outlay is only purely vehicles
And computers, Mr.
and
Chair,
computers.
which will be used by additional personnel to be hired.
And the vehicles will be used for shuttle purposes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Which we are currently trying to do for our personnel, given
But
the
you're doing it right now, the shuttle purpose, the shuttle system, the shuttle service.
We're using, actually, Mr. Chair, the vehicles that were allocated to the chairman and commissioner. So the previous chairman and commissioners were gracious enough to not use their vehicles for official personal use, but to allow the staff to actually use the vehicles that were allocated to them
Official trips or for shuttle purposes?
for shuttle purposes, Mr. Chair. So, kumbaga, instead of being used by the chairman and commissioners, they returned it to the carpool so that it can be used for shuttle purposes.
Okay. Is the shuttle assistance, is that because of the pandemic or is that a regular?
It arose really because of the pandemic, Mr. Chair, because the transportation then was actually difficult for staff to go into work. So what the GCG did was there were certain points in, for example, in Quezon City, there were certain points somewhere in Parañaque and other points in Manila where the GCG would pick up personnel from those points.
How about well, now that the pandemic is winding down, will you continue the shuttle service?
We hope to continue that, Mr. Chair, considering that's also for the welfare of our employees.
Okay. So in that 20 million that you asked, how many here will be used for vehicles?
That's 3.1 million, Mr. Chair. Those are
3.1.
two passenger vans.
Okay. So right now the shuttle service is also a passenger van.
No, Mr. Chair. It's a multi-purpose vehicle. Innova, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ang chairman, Innova ang sasakyan?
Yun yung
Parang
limitation
hindi
ng
yata pang chairman yun
limitations ng DBM, Chair. Mr. Chairman. On the
Hindi
vehicles that
yata
we can acquire.
commensurate. I don't think Innova is a commensurate vehicle to the chairman. I mean, out of just out of fairness.
And those vehicles, Mr. Chair, actually have already used up their useful life. They've been procured 8 years ago. So they're actually going to have to be refleeted by the commission.
Okay.
This includes the vehicles of the chairman and commissioners,
Okay.
which were procured in 2013, I think.
Okay. Okay. So ulitin ko I'll just put it on record. The new ones that will be bought, they'll be used for shuttle service.
The ones included in the 20 million, yes, Mr. Chair.
And the 17 million remaining will be used for IT.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And office space.
And
There's office
no,
space.
for office equipment yan, no? For capital outlay.
Capital outlay, yes.
So you're buying office
Computer.
equipment, computers, tables, chairs,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
mga ganyan, no? Basically for your expansion of office.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just submit to us a breakdown
Yes, Mr.
so
Chair.
that
We will do that.
if asked, we have a breakdown. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if
Chairman.
this representation, if not asking too much, because we would like to restore what was slashed by the DBM, as well as because of our plans, or even our proactive endeavor to improve the monitoring evaluation of our GOCCs. We might, anyway, my point is, without prejudice, that we may still ask an additional budget to justify the restoration, as well as to justify additional budget because of the activities we are planning to introduce, so as we will improve the revenues of these GOCCs to the coffers of our national government. Chairman, thank you very much.
Chairman, in addition to the 50 million here, you're requesting to add.
We are still evaluating
Okay.
without prejudice to that point.
Okay,
Mr.
okay.
Chairman.
Sige po. Once final, you can just submit to us.
Yes po.
Kasi we'll have to, we're given some leeway naman to source within our assigned committee. So, if not, we'll have to talk to the chairman of the finance committee to allocate from other agencies. No? But last time naman napagbigyan, I remember. So, just give it to us as soon as ready. All right.
Thank you.
I have some policy questions, and because I've been reviewing some of the GOCCs being monitored. The first is the number of GOCCs that were uh, abolished. And so can I, if my data is correct, and you can just add to this. There are 31 GOCCs that were approved for abolition. Tama po ba, Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can you give me a briefing on the status of that 31 GOCCs?
So out of the 31 GOCCs, Mr. Chair, 6 have been completely abolished and liquidated, and the 25 remaining GOCCs, Mr. Chair, are in various stages of liquidation. Liquidation entails necessarily the disposition through auction of the assets of the GOCC to pay off its outstanding liabilities before they can be considered fully liquidated and closed.
So 6 out of the 31 approved for abolition. 31 were, sorry, 6 were totally abolished already.
And liquidated, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yes.
And then 25, tama ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Are in
Ah,
various stages of liquidation.
Okay. And there's another one here for determination of fully abolished status. What does that mean? 5?
Which part is that, Mr. Chair?
Ha? Kasama na siya. Okay. I think it's already part of it. Kasi in my notes, there's, out of the 31, 5 GOCCs, the category is for determination of fully abolished status. But I think that includes
That's included in the 6, Mr.
in the
Chair.
6. Okay. This has been the problem ever since I've been hearing the budget of GOCC is the amount of time for the abolition, Chairman. I think there's some bottlenecks along the way, no, and that's why a lot. If I'm not mistaken, the 25, some of them were approved a long time ago.
Yes,
Tama ba?
Mr. Chair.
How old is the longest?
2013, Mr. Chair.
2013. So for almost 10 years, it's still under liquidation. And that's what I can see a room for improvement to, in fact, hasten the abolition of those approved GOCCs to be abolished. No? So I've mentioned this, I've asked this several times already, and the answer is normally the bottlenecks. No? So may I hear from the chairman, what are the strategies that can be employed by the new leadership to remove those bottlenecks and improve the pace in which the abolition can happen so that it will not be in the, it's always here in the report, no? Hindi siya nag-i-improve, no? So that mag-improve yung report.
Yes, but at this point, Mr. Chairman, we are really very cautious to adopt measures how to hasten up, especially this kind, because one of which is the office have already. I would like to. It was already been a plan to have, and I think it was approved. What they call DAMO, disposition and asset management office. I have to review because we just step into this office, and rest assured, Mr. Chairman, we will introduce some dynamics to hasten up this process, and perhaps the soonest as we adopt measures, we will promise that this will be expeditiously be disposed. Just like there are several cases pending before us, as I have discussed a while ago. There are some of which are pending 3 years, 4 years. The mere issue in concern is merely compensation, welfare of the employees, and yet with all honesty, we try to adopt some scheme as just like we have a dialogue, we have a meeting with them, and addressing what measure or method to be adopted in order to answer their concern. And all of them have been satisfied to our action taken for their concern. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Chairman.
Chair,
Yeah, go ahead po.
if I may add to that, I was comparing here with the General Counsel of the GCG, and one of the reasons why there was delay in the in attending to the liquidation is because the DAMO, the Disposition of Asset Management Office, is merely in an ad hoc capacity. So considering yes, sir. And just recently, that DAMO was now permanently created. Before, there is only an ad hoc committee addressing that. And that is given to the short of manpower, short of budget. So the manpower complement of GCG is really having hard time to attend to that. But given now the creation of that permanent office, I am very certain under the leadership of the new chairman, it will be quickly addressed. And I bear witness to his leadership style. We barely assumed office in not more than 2 weeks, Your Honor. And he was able already to conclude the problems of at least 7 GOCCs, Your Honor. So I am confident that under the new leadership, all these aspects of or areas of problems will be quickly addressed, Your Honor.
Thank you for that. That's always been my concern, the pace in which the abolition can happen. And from what I gather, every budget hearing is the bottlenecks, especially on the liquidation side, of which many are outside the powers of the GCG. I understand that the liquidation are being handled by the abolished, tama po ba? Abolished GOCCs? Is that how it's?
If I may.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It would really depend on the abolition order issued by the Office of the President. So it may order that the GOCC itself administer the liquidation of the GOCC, or it may assign a different agency to do that. But there's a technical working group po, composed of various agencies, interagency po. So I guess that contributes also to your issue on the bottleneck, because different agencies have different takes on different issues.
Will it be wise to? I also heard that DAMO issue before, no? But is it wise to increase the PS also so that you will have people in the DAMO? Because that seems to be the one of the issues hanging. Every time the budget, to be honest about it, that's one of the common sense gauges of the senators. How many ba na-abolish? How many ba yung mga hindi nagfa-function na tinanggal, no? Especially now in the era of tight fiscal space. This type of abolition is in fashion right now, no? So I'm just preempting questions on how many were abolished, therefore how much X amount was saved for the government. No? So I'm just expecting those type of questions later on. That's why I think maybe a good move or a good strategy will be putting more people in the DAMO office and staffing with capable people so that they can do their jobs much faster. No, again, no, that's a proposal that if you want to put it in your request, we'll try to accommodate it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, In fact, that is one of the, with my discussions with the chairman and the other commissioner, it's one of the track that we are leading to. As we are new here in the commission, I myself is also keenly listening and observing on the budget aspect of our institution. And one of which is the area of the PS. In fact, if you note, I mentioned that we are short of manpower, short of space, but too much and very big in plans, action plans for this under the new leadership. That is why, Your Honor, I will really be seeking the assistance of the good chair that the PS aspect and the MOOE be augmented so that we can push through with all the grand plans of the GCG, Your Honor.
We can include that because here there's no request, no, attorney, for PS. So it's purely for MOE and CO. So it's a management decision that I will leave to the GCG to decide. And you can just give us your official communication on what items we should augment, no, later on. So I think just talk among yourselves first, and then later on, if you think that the damo is a very important component to hasten the liquidation, then let's study how we can staff that with enough people. No? Yeah. All right. I'll go on another topic. No, the issue of subsidies. No? And this is another item that I quite often ask. No, do we have the latest computation on how much subsidies national government is giving to the GOCCs?
I think in the 2023 National Expenditure Program, Mr. Chairman, around 180 billion pesos is allocated to budgetary support to government corporations.
$180 billion in terms of subsidies.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's budgetary support to government corporations.
Hold on now. I asked my staff to, I have a list here of those top 10 GOCCs which receives subsidies. PhilHealth, 80 billion. Again, no, correct me if I'm wrong, attorney. National Immigration Administration, 38 billion. National Housing Authority, 25 billion. Meron ba kayong ano? Do you have a PowerPoint with that?
It's not in the PowerPoint presentation, Mr. Chair, but we have the data available.
Oo. So total, all of these GOCCs receive subsidies, tama? And the subsidies form part of their revenues, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And then, but their performance evaluation, revenues is also one of the criteria. Tama.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for those
Oo.
GOCCs.
So this is a policy issue that I want to raise, and maybe you guys can think about this. Is there's some again, no, part of the common sense gauge is to reduce as many subsidies as possible, tama, from national agencies. So we're now giving about 108 billion, tama, no, total subsidies from national government.
180 for 2020.
180, sorry, 180. And the strategy here is to reduce as many subsidies as possible. But I understand also some of these GOCCs have social mandates, correct? No?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can you explain that, Attorney?
So, Mr. Chair, essentially, when we talk about subsidies, we always clarify that 95% of the budgetary support to government corporations are to fund government programs. So, for example, Mr. Chair, in the um, annual appropriations as budgetary support, more than half of that always goes to the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation. And it's not really to subsidize PhilHealth, for example, as an institution or as an organization, but it actually pays for the premiums that senior citizens or indigents otherwise would have had to pay in order to be covered by PhilHealth. So essentially, the national government is subsidizing citizens and not necessarily the corporations to cover for certain financing deficit. So there are very few corporations, Mr. Chair, that are actually subsidized to bridge financing deficit as to expense and revenues of the corporation. So most of it, Mr. Chair, PhilHealth and Philippine Crop Insurance, for example, is to fund insurance premiums of citizens. And for the National Irrigation Administration, this is for the National Food Security Program of the national government to increase the productivity of our rice farmers in line with the thrust for national security and national food security and self-sufficiency.
But they're eligible also for, I mean, their revenue uh, is part of the performance evaluation system.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And for these GOCCs that actually receive budgetary support, budget utilization rate is also a standard measure for measuring whether or not these GOCCs who are allocated scarce government resources are actually using them optimally and judiciously.
My point there is they're being evaluated by the subsidies they're getting from national government. Kasi part of it is revenue, correct? So as a national government, we're trying to push down subsidies, but they're being evaluated based on revenue, of which the subsidies are being given also. So merong conflict in that respect. No? So this is a question that we won't answer today, no? But just look at how is that dynamic, because there's in my opinion, there's a disconnect, no? Because us in the legislative branch, we're trying to create as big a fiscal space as possible, and one of that strategy is to reduce subsidies. No, but then again, the GOCCs are being engaged to increase revenue. Part of it is the subsidies being.
To that point, Mr. Chair, no, the measure really is net income, and we measure net income of GOCCs, at least as GCG, as a performance measure. We measure total comprehensive income. And when we compute for total comprehensive income, the subsidies received by GOCCs from the national government is excluded in those revenue items, as well as, for example, dividends that may have received from subsidiaries, for example. So they're really measured on the income, the revenue, rather, that they generate from their operations.
So in that respect, how many of these, for example, um, so subsidies tinatanggal siya, it's
Yes,
being
Mr.
removed,
Chair,
no?
in computation of the net
But
income.
if that is the case, they will never get performance, a good performance. No? Kasi subsidies is a big part of their revenue. Eh. Correct? Some of them, that's the only revenue. So how is that going to, I mean, how will they get better scores if you remove subsidies?
When we measure performance of GOCCs, Mr. Chair, we measure them not only on financial performance but also on non-financial metrics. So, for example, a GOCC's allocated budgetary support from the national government. Part of the financial measure is the budget utilization rate, whether or not they're actually able to utilize the subsidy provided them by the national government, as well as non-financial measures such as the outputs and outcomes that these subsidies are supposed to generate in the sector for which the national government infuses subsidy for. So for example, there are a target number of beneficiaries for crop insurance or target number beneficiaries for health insurance. These are also metrics of the performance of the GOCC.
Yeah, I get your point. Revenue is only net income, no? It's only a small part of the total
It's
performance
part- yes.
evaluation. No? But just the same, um, is there a measure there, or is there part of the measure that encourages GOCCs to reduce subsidies?
Excuse me, Chair, may I say something
Yeah,
in
go ahead,
line
Chairman.
in line with that? First of all, as you have mentioned, we are adopting the guidance you have mentioned a while ago, such as to beware of the subsidy as well as that's why at present two GOCCs we have requested to submit to us the document of their expenses as well as the revenues, and to be more specific, so as the GCG will be properly guided the way their money is being spent, because we are the new management right now is very much aware and taking into consideration the guidance that you have given us. Rest assured, we will evaluate as to their civic obligation, how this revenues being spent, as well as the subsidy given by the government. Uh, we are very much aware that these offices are public offices, and therefore each and every one must be accountable for every centavo given by the government. Rest assured, Mr. Chairman, we will give our best, and perhaps that's why we are even contemplating how to expand the, if not an authority, it is an obligation on our part, whether to file criminal, civil, and administrative, using the special audit to support our mandate, Your Honor, to that effect. That's why, with your guidance, we will adopt it. How to impose safeguards to avoid dissipation of the government funds. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Chairman, my point of the matter there is, let's I'm just putting this on the table, no, to help the legislature to um, uh, use the GCG power to reduce the subsidies being given to the GOCCs, no, and there's no right now. I know they perform a social mandate, but then again, a lot of these GOCCs actually don't come to Congress for their corporate operating budget. No, they just operate on their own. We can just monitor the subsidies. No, but it's the GCG who has this broader view on the operations of those GOCCs. So my point of the matter there is, and I'm just putting this on the table, is to have a mechanism to reduce the subsidies being given. No? Make it part of the criteria or make it part of the evaluation process. So me as a GOCC, I'm conscious that I have to be efficient so that I will not request for subsidies all the time. No, maybe increase my non-subsidy revenue, revenue from other commercial operations, so things like this. No, so I'm just putting it on the table because I noticed that the subsidies are quite hefty. No, 180 billion is also quite a lot. No.
Precisely, Mr. Chairman, we have a plan even to have a field office in each and every GOCC so that we will be directly monitoring. Now, with regards to the subsidy, I've been telling, and we have been thinking right now to adopt a scheme, if not to eradicate, at least to reduce whatever dissipation that GOCCs have been committed. I'm not attributing of something, but in short, paglulustay. We have to avoid that, at least adopting some measures, if not to eradicate, to reduce it, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
thank
Chair-
you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Along that line, the line of the chairman and of the good senator, I think GCG is we are one with you in that aspect in saying that these GOCCs should put their plan on increasing their revenues so as to cover that aspect of the subsidies. I think you are going along that direction, that not merely relying solely on the government to support that project implementation on subsidies. I think we will be instituting a mechanism or a policy on the part of GCG on how to address that aspect, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney. On the aspect of the compensation imposition classification system, I think this was delayed also, no? It was delayed more so during the pandemic. May I get an update on the implementation of the CPCS? And also, when do we see a full implementation of this?
So on the compensation and position classification system, Mr. Chair, it was approved by the President last year, October of 2021, through Executive Order number 150. And as of today, around 60 government-owned or controlled corporations out of 65 who have submitted the complete documents for the implementation of the CPCS have already been issued the authorizations to implement the standardized compensation system under EO 150.
So the effect is both GOCC and also national government will have a standard compensation system.
There are different compensation systems, Mr. Chair. The
Oh.
GOCCs will be implementing the CPCS under EO 150, which is a different system from the national government's SSL.
And but the CPCS, all GOCCs will have a similar compensation system.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It
Okay.
eliminates the SSL covered, SSL exempt distinction for GOCCs. Now they are governed under one system.
But this is only limited to the GCG GOCCs.
Yes, GCG
correct?
covered GOCCs.
So hindi
Mr. Chair.
kasama, let's say, mga water, the water districts? Are they
Yes, the water
GOCCs?
districts are not covered, as well as
Okay.
economic zone authorities.
Okay, okay. So they have a different compensation system. Okay. And when do we see full implementation of that?
By the end of the year, Mr. Chair, we hope to see the full implementation of the CPCS because we will also be undertaking the review of its implementation to update it based on the standards of the RA 10149 to regularly and periodically update the CPCS. So we'll be doing this in coordination with the Department of Budget and Management.
Okay. So all 118 GOCCs will be implementing the CPCS.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. By end of the year.
By the end of the year, Mr. Chair.
Is there a penalty if the GOCCs will refuse? For example, mataas na mayroon bang ganon? They're now receiving high salary grades compared to the CPCS. Is there such a scenario?
There are scenarios such as that, Mr. Chair. There are GOCCs who are receiving...
Under your watch, ah?
Yes, that are receiving compensation much higher, but under the CPCS, there's a principle called non-diminution of authorized salary.
Yeah, okay.
So if they are already getting salaries higher than what the CPCS provides, then they will continue to get the higher salary, but the benefits and non-salary components of the compensation have been standardized.
Okay. So the ones coming in, the new employees coming in, will now have to comply with the CPCS.
CPCS, yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
but the ones existing, status quo.
Yes, non-diminution, Mr. Chair.
Okay, non-diminution. All right. Okay.
If I may just
Yes, go
mention,
ahead.
Mr.
Sorry.
Chair, I think the CPCS will be up for review by next year. And so part of the increase in the budget will be for the purchase of the review tools that will be used for the CPCS.
There a penalty if they don't comply? For example, I also saw some report here, non-compliance on PES, some non-compliant GOCCs. No, I'll go to that later on. I'll just look for the notes. But is there a penalty if the GOCC will not comply?
Specifically for GOCCs that are issued an authorization to implement the CPCS, considering that becomes their compensation system applicable, if they deviate from that compensation system, that will be subject already to COA notices of observations and afterwards disallowance.
In other words, GCG can mandate the compensation package, and COA will take recognition of that compensation
Yes,
package
Mr. Chair.
and form part of their audit.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Any deviation would already constitute undue disbursement of public funds.
Excuse me. Uh, Perhaps your office might be receiving several complaints of the employees of the different GOCCs regarding their compensation package. Rest assured, there are that the present administration right now is taking into consideration all of them. There are some or several pending concern, complaint, appeal, motion for reconsideration of the employees or union before us. But we already have entertained, I use the word confront them, to listen and to guide them what to do. Meaning, we take action on the matter immediately. So at present, perhaps before the end of this year, all these pending concern of the employees, from their benefits as to the graduation of their compensation, the same will be accomplished by the GCG before the end of this year. Thank you.
That's good to hear,
Um,
Chairman. Yes, attorney.
Mr. Chair, along that line, you were asking if there is non-compliance to the CPCS. The chairman is actually, as mentioned a while ago, he is even up to the extent of using Section 26, and that is the special audit power of the chairman. So that compliance of the CPCS can be ensured, Your Honor.
Thank you for that. I know that CPCS has been delayed for a while. I remember also during the pandemic it was delayed, no? So, and I think there was one time President Duterte asked for its review, no? If I'm not mistaken, no? If my memory serves me right. So finally it's now implemented, no? And it's a good way to harmonize all the compensation, different compensation packages of GOCCs, no? All right. I'll go to another topic, which is the performance evaluation system. And compliance. Di ba may mga non-compliant na things?
Excuse me. May I beg to be excused for a kidney break
Yes,
for a
yes,
while?
Chairman. Go ahead. Go ahead. Feel free. I'll continue now without the chairman because I think these are a lot of these are staff level issues. We also took note of an item in the Koa report in which the implementation of the performance evaluation system or performance scorecards. Not all participated in that performance scorecard. Um, some are delayed, some are on time, some are, like for example, 66% are ongoing or delayed, and then 26% or 34% evaluated already. So, my question is, what's the recourse if a GOCC will not participate or is delaying the process of performance evaluation? Well, anong recourse sa ganun?
So in terms of recourse, Mr. Chair, the policy really is if a GOCC cannot support the accomplishments that it reports to the GCG, they are given an automatic zero score. And the performance score of a GOCC, at least they must obtain at least a 90% score in order to be granted performance-based bonus for their officers and employees, and performance-based incentives for their boards of directors. As to the Koa report, that actually pertains to the submission by GOCCs of their accomplishments for 2020. So this was around 2021, and GOCCs were delayed in the submission of their accomplishment reports for 2020. So most GOCCs requested for extensions in the submission of their accomplishment reports, considering most of their personnel were working from home or not in the office, considering the skeleton workforce, and they had difficulty consolidating the documents that can support their reported accomplishments. And around this time, Mr. Chair, considering there was still the lingering effects of the pandemic, the GCG actually had to resort to desk evaluation of the accomplishments of GOCCs, and therefore they really had to submit complete documents in order to substantiate any accomplishments submitted. But we have completed the evaluation of these GOCCs as of the first quarter of this year in compliance with the Commission on Audit.
Well, this is a little bit old na, no? Status in calendar year 2020. But nevertheless, it's still an indicator. Two have not submitted, 60 submitted but delayed, and then 17 submitted. So I don't have the latest figures, but it's an indicator that not all GOCCs are on time.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the recourse to that? Because obviously the performance evaluation is one of the most important tool to evaluate whether a GOCC is performing up to par or not. No. So what's the recourse to improve the timeliness of submission by the GOCCs?
Essentially, we've undertaken a review of our processes, Mr. Chair, including the timelines of submissions for GOCC. So, for example, in 2020, GOCCs were required to submit within 30 days from the close of the quarter the accomplishment report. So, technically, for 2020 accomplishments, they should have submitted it by the end of January. But considering GOCCs had difficulty consolidating documents at the end of the year and making that final consolidated report, we were actually looking at extending the timelines permanently for GOCCs to give them more time to consolidate annual accomplishments, and also to clarify that once they have submitted those reports, if there are incomplete reports, extensions for submissions will no longer be granted. So they'll have to really be more efficient in making sure that performance accomplishments are monitored regularly so that they will be able to accomplish it and consolidate it by the end of the year for submission to GCG.
The only downside on their part is they cannot apply for performance bonus
Yes, Mr. Chair, for that year. And
for
for
that year.
consecutive years where a GOCC is non-performing, that serves as basis for us to review whether or not these GOCC should actually still be retained by the national government.
But will their board be penalized for non-submission? Because based on I have a report here that in 2020, only 79 GOCCs submitted PES scorecards, of which only 26 passed the 90% mark. No? Can you flash it? Table 11. And then, so that's only 33%. So only 79 out of the 118 submitted, but out of the 79 submitted, only 33% actually passed. No? Yep.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
go ahead, Chairman.
the last in-bank meeting, this representation with the concurrence of my two colleagues as well as the ex-officios, we have adopted a coercive power so as to compel these GOCCs by issuing a show cause order for them to produce whatever or to ask them. Otherwise, we might use our the authority or being asked by the law from us to file criminal, civil, and administrative. The composition right now of the GCG is how to utilize and how to compel by adopting coercive power. I think that problem has long been pending as some practice by the GOCC. It seems that they, if not neglecting, they seems to be ignoring the existence of the GCG. But right now, Mr. Chairman, we are studying especially that method adopted by the last in-bank of the commission to use show cause order to compel them and to be on time because the feeling of this representation, if not neglected, we are being ignored by this GOCC. Rest assured, Your Honor, with our management right now, we will compel them and to be to have a pass disposition of all the concern of our office as well as the GOCCs. Thank you.
Ba talaga pag Sandigan Bayan ang chairman talagang mahigpit? Dapat ho sumunod ho talaga because in simple terms, the GOCC is the government's the GCG is the government's watchdog, no, to all GOCCs. And if you remember the history of the GCG, it was a clamor from the public because of the exorbitant bonuses that were given without any without any reason, no, by the GOCCs. No, everyone was doing their own rewarding system at that time, no, and there was a clamor from the public. So it became the watchdog of government, no. So, but then again, I'll just share to the screen. Only 79% submitted their PS scorecards. Oh, sorry, only 79 out of the 118, of which 26 passed, no. So that's only 33%. So I would assume the larger, since they didn't submit, also failed. No. So in other words, we're managing in my analysis, majority of the GOCCs fell below the 90% mark of the performance evaluation system. Tama ba, attorney?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oo. So in other words, the GOCCs that we're managing are below the 90%. 90% is the benchmark for the performance bonus, di ba?
Yes, Mr.
So
Chair.
in other words, that is the optimum or the most efficient. But less than 50% are at 90%. So that goes to show the quality of GOCCs that we have. No? Hindi na sila nagko-comply, and then the qualities of managements like that. So
Having came from judiciary, the doctrine of justice delayed is justice denied. So therefore, this representation will not allow further delay of action obligated from them. And we might even assume, without assuming, that they might be trying to hide something. Because if you don't have to hide something, you must always be on time. Okay, so with this, Mr. Chairman, really we are adopting measures, scheme, how to make this GOCC to be transparent. And if we are going to digitalize the proceedings, the transactions, open to the public, Mr. Chairman. But I know the financial constraint will be the problem. Should we digitalize these all GOCCs? Thank you.
That's why, Mr. Chairman, I am putting this on record so that people will understand the rationale why we need to beef up the GCG, no? So that the watchdog will have enough manpower to watch over this non-compliant, non-cooperative GOCCs, as what I am seeing, and also based on the Koa report.
Thank
Attorney,
you.
tama ba yung Koa report?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Here in the Koa report, a lot. Where's that? Where's that graph? Here. 76% submitted but delayed.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So we have to improve this because this shows the uncooperativeness of the GOCCs, no, that we are actually watching. No, so I can see that under the new leadership, the whip will be cracked and more compliance will happen, no, in the next 6 years. Lastly, 14. I also noticed that there are some GOCCs are constantly losing money, and I'll just flash it. Medyo maliit lang, no? But let me just name a few. Um, Al Amana Islamic Investment Bank. I'll just go through it randomly, no? GY Real Estate. Um, PNOC Renewable Energy. This one I always bring up, and I think there's already a move to abolish. But my point here, Attorney Johan, is there's still a lot of GOCCs that are losing money, draining government coffers. A lot of these are also being subsidized. I understand some of them perform social functions like LRT, actually LRT lang dito, or PTB4, PNR, but a lot of them are non-performing, like PNOC Renewable, no? When I was chairing the Energy Committee, I always put this on the table that the private sector is already doing renewable energy, no? If you go to Rizal, you'll see wind farms there by the private sector, solar farms all over the country by the private sector, but yet government is funneling subsidies to a company doing exactly the same thing as the private sector is doing, no? So I just want to point out that there is still room for improvement, no, in terms of um, abolishing inefficient GOCCs that are what we call competitive, violating the competitive neutrality concept, no, in which it's competing with the private sector. And there are also some GOCCs here that are not, actually, there's no more mandate. No? For example, the GY Real Estate, Philippine Pharma and Procurement, I think that's also controversial, no? Yung PITC, because this agency is actually being used to park funds. So my point here is my room for improvement, no, to look at. No? And I'm just, again, putting this on the table so that the GCG can look at these companies and resolve how to either cut the losses, do away with the losses, or totally abolish them. No?
Mr. Chair, as you have mentioned, PITC, we are hardly looking at it. Okay, and we're studying and in fact investigating. Okay, and if the evidence or circumstances, what kind of criminal, civil, or administrative that our office may adopt, don't worry. We are very much awake right now to exercise as a watchdog of the government because we are looking at 10 trillion government properties, Your Honor. And we are very much aware of our role in our obligation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I can see the dynamics in GCG has dramatically changed with Chairman and former Justice Quiros at the helm. Baka maging DOJ na ho to rather than GCG. But I think as a watchdog, you have to bring discipline among the agencies that you are watching over. You know, so and that's important because from what the data that I'm seeing, again, there's so much room for improvement. No.
We are now sending our message that the GCG's main business to be a watchdog of the government, 10 trillion properties. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that's actually originally that was the principle out of GCG to be the watchdog. You know. If you ask me, nga, I would put all the other GCGs there, all the other GOCCs like in mga water agencies, ang daming not only corruption, ang daming inefficiencies. Even the financial institutions, I'll put it there then. Because these are all GCGs, they follow the same principles. No, if you ask me. But that's we can talk about that later on. No?
We will welcome the amendatory law of the good senator of that.
No, parang all-encompassing na. No? We don't choose whether you're a water related GCG or a financially related GCD. All GOCC should be within the ambit of the GCG, no? So that they follow the same principles. No? So, but that's for later discussion. So, with that, I don't have any more questions, and I don't think any senator is online. I think they'll be probably asking me during the plenary debate. So, thank you for your time, and we will be favorably endorsing this budget to plenary so that we can. Yes.
Could we add a little?
Yes, go ahead,
yeah.
Chairman.
With regards to there was a law passed to subsidize PTB4. I would like this matter because this matter might be raised in the plenary. May I ask the staff to discuss as to the status because there was a law passed to for sale the IBC 13 and to appraise the chairman. So as you will, I think you will be the one to defend us. May I ask our staff?
Yeah, we can do. Can give us some updates on the PTB4 as well as IBC 13 activities. No?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Your Honor. So, IBC 13, no, as it stands now, it is slated for privatization. No, we are working on two legal frameworks, basically. First is as mentioned by our chairperson, Republic Act number 10390, or an act revitalizing the People's Television Network Incorporated. So it is provided in that law that 2 billion pesos of the additional authorized capital for PTV4 shall be taken from the proceeds of the privatization of RPN 9 and IBC 13. And the other legal framework or basis that I am talking about is there's a standing order coming from the Office of the President to actually privatize IBC 13 through the sale of shares of stock of the national government.
So, Attorney, let me just get some updates. So, for IBC 13, it's already been decided that it should be privatized, no?
Yes, that is correct.
And the privatization mode is through the shares of stock of IBC 13.
Yes.
Okay. The share stock will happen through the stock market or privately
There will be a
private sale.
private sale of the
And then obviously that will be undertaken through a bidding.
that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And when is the timetable for that?
Okay, right now, given the new administration, no, and as mentioned by our good chairperson, no, actually, the direction, at least from the GCG's point of view, is actually to to make more study or evaluation on the same, given the length of time that has already passed, no, with respect to its privatization, and to discuss also the impending issues of the privatization itself. No, for example, the benefits of the employees, and also the impending expiration of the franchise actually of IBC 13, which is set to expire on 2025.
Oh, lapit na.
Yes.
So GCG will be in charge of the privatization activities?
Oh, as it stands now, Mr. Chairman, there's a privatization committee that was formed by the Office of the President, which is composed of the then PCOO, which serves as the chair of that privatization committee, the GCG, and IBC 13 itself.
Okay. All right.
Your Honor, if I may add, just to be clear, since you will be defending the budget of GCG, it might be raised. The obligation to privatize the IBC 13 is not lodged or given to the GCG. The law simply states that the IBC 13 has to be privatized in order to augment the authorized capital stock of Channel 4. So that is the purpose. But the mandate as to who will privatize, it is not given to GCG. Would that be correct?
It is not stated in the law, but
Yes.
there is a
The mandate is
Directive
the
coming
directive from the Office of the President through the creation of the privatization committee.
committee.
That's for IBC 13.
That is correct,
Uh-uh.
Mr. Chair.
For PTV4, there's no. I don't think there's any move to privatize it. Eh.
No, actually,
The proceeds will be used for PTV4.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So will that happen in 2023? The privatization of IBC 13?
well, as I mentioned, I guess one of the bigger or most obvious issue would be the impending expiration of the
yeah. That is
franchise.
a big question mark.
Yes, so as to entice buyers.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's another topic for discussion later on, probably under a different committee. I think under the Public Information Committee. So with that, since there are no more questions from our senators who are not actually here, the budget of Governance Commission for Government-Owned and Controlled Corporations is deemed submitted for plenary consideration. So with that, we'll just request from management some items. Number one, reconcile data on utilization, timetable on utilization of unobligated funds, details of request pertaining to the additional restoration of the budget, and what's this wish list of the 50 million additional budget. No? So just submit to us. Suspend. Okay. So with that, this budget briefing is hereby suspended. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.